How'd you feel about your afternoon, Garrett?
Yeah. It was grinding through the first couple innings. Didn't really have the four seam, so just ultimately pivoted and rode the cutter pretty hard, and was able to get some weak contact with it.
Finding different ways to get the job done and give the team what it needs.
Yeah.
How important is that for you?
Yeah, it's just the nature of the job, really. They always talk about the 10 days that you have your best stuff, 10 days that you got average, and 10 days you got your worst. So it's like, 20 starts out of the year, you just got to find a way, and today was one of those days. Riding on the heels of Trevor's 2-run shot, it was, let's just keep going and, find a way.
When you move away from the four seam and go to the cutter, is that a conversation with Connor up in the dugout or at any point?
I think that he was just, seeing, the way that things were going, and he kind of just pivoted accordingly. Ultimately, it was like after the fourth inning, we kind of had that conversation of, hey, we're throwing a lot, do we keep going with it? And, ultimately we did. It was, just kind of one of those things that was working, so why go away from it?
He's slightly injured. How valuable is Greg Weiser?
Yeah, he's been huge. Even before the injury went down, he was starting to creep into those leverage spots. But then he was just, kind of thrust into, eighth inning, sometimes closing games, obviously, this past week. He's got great stuff, great work ethic. Really knows what he wants to do and has good feel for pitching. So it's been, kind of what we expected out of him, quite frankly. He's one of those guys that has a different mentality when he's out there.
Aside from the team winning, what aspect of your outing today was most satisfying to you?
Just getting through six, honestly. I've talked a lot about, seven's really the ultimate goal, and I had to grind through those first three innings. I think I was at like 60 plus pitches following the third inning. So, for me, it was just doing what I could to put the team in a position to win. The offense really did a good job of going ahead early. And then I kind of gave that up, and then they answered right back. So, it was just trying as hard as I can to not give up the lead again.
Just for the team to win 4 series in a row now, how important is that?
Yeah, it's huge. The momentum was building for a while. And I think that, this past week it's really started to bubble over the top. I think that right now we're playing the kind of baseball that we need to play. And, ultimately the bullpen's been doing a hell of a job, eating innings and closing out wins.
You say it's starting to bubble over the top. What is it exactly?
I think that it's just, we kind of broke the ice on winning a couple one-run ball games back-to-back. Just playing good defense and obviously the starters had a good stretch right there, and that was what we needed. The bullpen guys were overworked early, in part because of us and in part because of going to extra innings, and I think that we kind of were able to give them a bit of a reset this past week, and that's allowed them to just be locked down.